Let's discuss other requirements. Now, it's really hard to discuss other requirements because they're other requirements. As you're doing your research, it's very important that you make note of any special or unique requirements that a university lists. A piece that we mentioned earlier in the course is the Statement of Finances. All international students are required to submit a statement of finances, a financial guarantee, or a sponsorship letter at some point in the process. This document is required for a school to issue an I-20, and an I-20 is required for you to apply for an F1 student visa. The difference is that some schools require the financial documents at the time of application, while other schools won't require the documents until after acceptance. Some schools have a specific form that they want filled out. Other schools are flexible with what they will accept. You need to understand the requirements for each of your schools so that you can submit the right piece at the right time. If you don't, you run the risk of having an incomplete application, or you run the risk of not being able to get your student visa. Another common application piece is the interview. While interviews are rarely required as a piece of the application, they are quite often an optional application piece. Interviews are usually conducted by an alumni, a graduate of the college or university. Since there aren't enough admission officers to interview all of the applicants, schools have to ask their graduates to help with the process. Now, the first question that you have to ask is, can I interview? Depending on where you are and whether or not there are interviewers in your country, you might not have the option to even interview. If interviewing is an option, then the big question is, should I interview? This is yet another "it depends" answer. First, it depends on how important the interview is to the university. If you look at the interview page on MIT's website, you'll see this note. Interviews are strongly recommended. In fact, last year, of eligible applicants, we admitted 10.8% of those who had an interview or who had their interview waived, but only 1% of those who chose not to interview. If you see information that shows you that an interview, even an optional interview, is significant in the admission process, then you need to interview. Interestingly, Georgetown University requires interviews of all applicants, including international applicants. On their website, they write, an interview report will be submitted and becomes part of the admissions file. While the interview report is used as part of the admission committee's consideration process, it rarely makes or breaks an application, and much more often than not, it works in the applicant's favor. At Georgetown, the interview is not make or break, but it is a requirement. At MIT, the interview is optional, but it carries great significance. Second, it depends on you. If you don't really like to talk, or if you answer most questions with 1 or 2 words, you might not want to interview. If, however, you are dynamic and talkative and enjoy chatting with others, then you should absolutely interview. If you are really, truly interested in a university, then you should also take the time to demonstrate your interest through an interview. If you choose to interview, you need to do a few things. First, you need to do your research on the school. Virtually every admissions interview will include a question about why you want to attend that school or why you and the school are a good match. Second, you need to be yourself. Relax. These are interviews, but they probably should be called conversations because that's what they are. Relax and be you. Once you can do that, the conversation can flow. Third, you must prepare. Have a teacher, a counselor, or a parent give you a mock interview for practice. Prepare yourself to answer questions like, "Tell me about yourself," or "Why are you interested in this university?" Preparing will help you relax. Relaxing will help you give a good interview. You should also prepare questions to ask your interviewer. When I say questions, I actually mean many questions. You would be surprised how many questions get answered during the course of a conversation, and you don't want to be left with nothing to ask when the interview is finished. The questions you ask your interviewer should be insightful. Asking, "What do you miss most about the school?" is much better than asking about average TOEFL scores. Interviews are like living, breathing essays. We talked about filling your essay with your voice. Well, there's no better way to share your voice than through a conversation. If you're planning on interviewing, remember to add it to your calendar. You need time to request, prepare for, and conduct the interview, so make sure you plan for it. Another unique piece is if you're applying to what's known as a talent-based major. If you're applying for a talent-based major, you're likely to see more special requirements. For instance, if you're applying to a performance-based major, such as instrumental music, vocal music, dance, or theater, you will likely have to audition as part of your application process. If you're applying to a visual major, such as design, architecture, photography, or the arts, you'll probably have to submit a portfolio of your work as part of your application process. Even if you're applying to a writing-based major, you might have to submit a writing portfolio as a piece of your application. For admission to these specialized major, pieces like an audition or portfolio are going to be some of the most important pieces, potentially as important as your academic qualifications. If you're required to submit any of these pieces, you need to factor time into your plan. Programs usually have specific guidelines for special requirements like these. Assembling a portfolio or practicing for an audition takes a lot of time. You have to factor that time into your plan. Now, because these requirements are so specialized, I'm not going to go into too much depth about them. Instead, I would encourage you to read the requirements very carefully and to be in touch with the schools directly to help you with advice and answering questions about fulfilling these special requirements. Remember, when you see special requirements at a college or university, it is for a reason. Schools are not going to ask you to do something special or to submit a piece of an application just to ignore it in the evaluation process. When you see special requirements, take the time to understand what they're asking for and why they are asking for it. You might find a great opportunity to distinguish yourself through this unique piece.